Little girl had only days left to live, but what her German shepherd did made even the doctors cry. The world outside Sophie's hospital window was a blur of winter rain and distant sirens. Inside, the only sound was the soft, mechanical rhythm of the monitors that counted her fading heartbeat. She looked so small, barely making a dent in the stiff hospital bed, wrapped in layers of white sheets that couldn't seem to warm her anymore. Tubes snaked into her arms. Machines blinked in steady, cruel patience. At the foot of the bed sat Max, a huge German shepherd with thick, silver-flecked fur and solemn, knowing eyes. He hadn't moved for hours. His heavy head lay on the mattress near Sophie's hand, his body tense, as if waiting for a command that would never come. Sophie's fingers, weak but determined, fluttered slightly against his ear. And Max, sensing something stirring deep within his girl, lifted his head, his ears pricking forward. It would be tonight. Something was about to happen. Sophie Jacobs had been born on a bright June morning, a splash of joy in a quiet town where nothing much ever changed. She was the kind of child who spoke to butterflies, who picked wildflowers for strangers, who believed, with absolute certainty, that every storm was just the sky telling stories. Her family lived in a cozy, creaky farmhouse at the edge of Maple Grove, surrounded by endless fields and whispering woods. When Sophie turned 3, her parents took her to the animal shelter to choose a friend. Dozens of puppies yipped and tumbled around her, but one, a gangly, bashful German shepherd pup, sat quietly in the corner, too shy to join the others. Sophie didn't hesitate. She marched straight over, sat down on the dusty floor, and wrapped her arms around him. "This one," she said. "He's my forever friend." They named him Max. From that day forward, where Sophie went, Max followed. He was her guardian through thunderstorms, her audience for backyard concerts, her partner in endless adventures. He was there when she lost her first tooth. He was there when she started school, barking furiously at the bus until she waved. And now, as sickness wrapped its icy fingers around her fragile body, Max refused to be anywhere else. Even as doctors frowned and shook their heads. Even as her parents' smiles became forced and tight. Even as hope flickered, Max stayed. In the early days, the hospital staff had smiled at Max's devotion. They made special allowances to let him visit. Good for her spirit, they said. But as Sophie's condition worsened, Max changed. He no longer simply sat by her bed. He watched her, with a focus so intense it unsettled the nurses. At night, when the halls grew dark and quiet, Max would rise and pace back and forth in front of her door, his claws clicking anxiously on the linoleum. Sometimes he pressed his nose against the door, whining low in his throat. At first, the staff thought he was simply distressed. But then came the growls. Low, deep. Warnings sent into the dark. Max would sit up suddenly from a doze, ears forward, body trembling, and let out a rumbling growl, not of anger, but of alarm. Something unseen was creeping closer, and Max felt it. Sophie's mother, Emily, noticed it too. Some nights, she sat awake by Sophie's bedside, clutching her daughter's tiny hand, watching Max's eyes, sharp and unblinking, as if he were fighting an invisible enemy only he could sense. The doctors gave Sophie days at most. But Max was preparing for something. He knew. The third night was the worst. It started with Sophie's monitors spiking, sudden, frantic beeps that shattered the room's silence. Nurses rushed in, voices clipped and urgent. Sophie's body convulsed once, then went terrifyingly still. Emily screamed. Max exploded into action. Without warning, he leapt onto the bed, a massive, living shield over Sophie's chest. Gasps filled the room. "Get him off," someone cried. But Max wouldn't budge. He laid fully across Sophie's torso, his head buried against her heart, his body vibrating with low, determined growls. Dr. Ellis, a grizzled cardiologist who had been watching the commotion from the hallway, stepped inside, heart pounding. Something clicked in his mind. "Everyone stop," he ordered. He crouched beside the bed, eye level with Max. The dog's eyes burned into him, wild but pleading. Scan her heart now. Dr. Ellis barked at the nurses. The portable ultrasound was dragged into the room. Gel smeared across Sophie's frail chest. The probe slid over her skin. And there it was, a massive, festering pocket of infection surrounding Sophie's heart. Missed in previous scans. Hidden. Growing rapidly. Without immediate intervention, Sophie's heart would have failed tonight. The room exploded into action. Orders were shouted. Forms signed. Sophie's bed rolled out of the room, monitors and machines trailing behind her like panicked soldiers. Max tried to follow, barking sharply, but the doors of the operating room slammed shut in his face. He whimpered once, a broken, guttural sound, and lay down flat against the cold tile outside the OR. His tail curled tightly against his body. His head dropped between his paws. And there he stayed. Emily sank down beside him, her hand buried in his fur, drawing strength from the dog's stillness. Hours passed. The world outside the OR slowed to a crawl. Finally, the doors swung open. Dr. Ellis stepped out, his surgical cap askew, his face pale and wet with tears. "She's alive," he said, voice cracking. "The infection was seconds away from shutting her down, but we got it." Emily sobbed, her whole body shaking. Max barked once, a sharp, joyous sound, and then sagged in relief, nuzzling his head against Emily's lap. He had saved her. He knew before any of them did. Spring came to Maple Grove in a rush of color. On a bright April afternoon, Sophie raced barefoot across the green fields behind her family's farmhouse, her giggles ringing through the air. Her hair streamed behind her like a banner, her arms flung wide like wings. Max chased after her, tail wagging so furiously it seemed ready to fly off. He barked once, sharp and playful, as Sophie collapsed into a pile of wildflowers, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. The scar on her chest was a faint pink line now, a mark of battles fought and won. Every year afterward, Sophie's family hosted a picnic at the hospital to celebrate the day Max had saved her life. Doctors, nurses, patients, and visitors would come just to pet the miracle dog. And every year, Max sat proudly beside Sophie, basking in their love, his graying muzzle lifted to the sun. He was more than a pet, more than a hero. He was proof that sometimes love itself can hear what medicine cannot. And sometimes love is enough to bring someone back.